All right, so next Gordon's up. He says, hey guys, as usual, your hump day help is greatly appreciated. You're welcome, Gordon. He says, I'm not sure how Google search algorithm works in one particular instance when it comes to local search. If you take a standard lead gen site that is branded with specific business NAP, actual or made up, as well as having links to citations in the major directories and a GMB listing, and compare it to an authority site that is targeted to a specific business niche in location, but without any of the items just mentioned for the lead gen site, they're both equally easy to rank, or would Google's search algorithm favor one type of site over the other? And if so, in what way? I'm not sure what you're talking about unless you mean like a local lead gen site versus like a Yelp page or something, if that's what you mean. Or a big authority type site like, well, I mean, Yelp would be one of those, but like Home Advisor would be another one, or Angie's List, or, and I'm talking contractor type stuff, but like in the real estate market, it would be like, Long and Foster or Century 21 or, Remax and things like that versus a local lead gen site, right? So my point is, it really depends. When it comes to maps listings, maps rankings, I found that a local lead gen site, you can typically rank better than those type of sites, because a lot of those sites won't have a maps listing, like a physical location in a particular area. But when it comes to organic rankings, yeah, it's tough. If it's a search with local intent, especially if there are directories, if you go do a search in Google right now, guys, you'll see that I think Google's broken again. And I talked about this in a recent Hump Day Hangout, because there are Google is nothing but an index of links, right? Google isn't, search results are indexed results. The search engine results pages, or the SERPs, is nothing but a list of indexed results, right? So page 1 is the top 10 results as indexed by Google, according to Google's algorithm. But if you take a search and do something like Plumber Fairfax VA for Virginia, right? So Plumber Fairfax VA, you do that search and you'll see that there's the maps listings, which is great. And you might see a couple of local businesses ranked in your organic listings, but you're primarily going to see business directories that are indexed in the organic section that, when clicked upon, go to another index page. We talked about this recently, right? And it's very difficult to compete with that kind of stuff. So let's just take a look real quick. If I say Plumber Fairfax VA, right? We're going to scroll down. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay. And you can see they're blue because it's still cookied from the last time I was here. But you're going to see ads. All right, let's make sure that we spell it right. Okay, so you're going to see ads, and then we're going to see the maps rankings, which I find are easier to do when competing in this type of a space, right? Because take a look, the top 3, there's one actual company website, right? Out of the top 3. So number 1 and number 3 are index pages on other. So essentially when you click through to this, guys, all it does is take you to another damn index, which is what Google's page is, right? It's an index. And then you take a look at this, and you click through, and it's nothing but another index of plumbers on Yelp and that are in Fairfax. And the same thing goes for Angie's List, right? Then you'll see Michael and Sons, okay, number 4. So that's another company. But then Home Advisor, that's another index page. So out of the top 5, 3 out of the top 5 are actually index pages. And so again, even though they don't have a physical location there, which is why they're not in maps, you can see that those are authoritative sites, and their authority is why they rank so well organically, even if they're not super optimized, right? Specifically, like if you take a look at the Yelp page, it doesn't have a ton of content here about plumbing and the plumbing services, or the services that plumbers offer and all that kind of stuff. All it is a freaking index page, right? That's all it is. And so it's not content rich at all, yet it's ranking very, very well. Number 1, in fact. Does that make sense? So when it comes to actual, which one is easier and which one's harder, that's why I've always recommended for local lead gen, focus on maps, because it's gotten, over the years, it's gotten harder and harder to rank in organics, the organic section, excuse me, because of the business directories. And Google's gone through phases where sometimes it will list index page. Again, I think it's stupid. Think about that. You go from one index to another index. That's dumb. I don't think that's useful to anybody, right? I mean, that's just my opinion, but I really don't think that's useful to anybody. Why would you want to go from one index to another index when you click through? Now you've added an additional step to find your solution, right? So again, I think that's dumb, but over the years, we've seen that happen with Google, where they get rid of the directory listings, the indexed directory listings. It's okay to have a Yelp page for a specific company ranked in the top 10. That's fine, because that means that company had probably done it really well at filling out their profile, optimizing it well. They probably got a lot of engagement, that kind of stuff. That would be fine. But to go to another index page, unfortunately, that's kind of where we're back to now. And I don't know that it's going to change or when it will change. It may. Like I said, it's gone in cycles over the years. So when it comes to what I think is easier to do, I think you're much better off focusing on maps for local lead gen stuff than trying to do trying to fight or compete with the authority sites in the organic rankings. And I know some people might have differing opinions, but fighting with Yelp and their authority, over here, it's very, very difficult. Same thing with Angie's List, Home Advisor, it's very, very difficult. Anybody want to comment on that?
No, I'm going to agree with that, but I would also say that in SERPs now, what really matters is the entity, and how well or how much you've taken care of the entity, how much power you're pushing to the entity, so that you're presented to Google as trusted and authoritative also in the niche. If you don't do that correctly, then you have no hope of trying to rank in the SERPs, right? Especially against these powerhouses. But you can, as you've shown, that there is a company that's ranking in there, and the way that you do that is power. You should, first of all, we went through the entity webinar, right? We did that in Syndication Academy, where we showed the steps that you need to take to solidify the entity, or what I call the end game, so that when you push power into the entity, Google is going to take all of that power as trust and authority for your entity, so that you can go against these powerhouses and get in there. But it does take a lot of power. It does take a lot of creativity, and your schema has to be right. There's many things that come into play when you're trying to do this, and as you said, it's easier to go after the maps.
Yeah, but I totally agree with what you're saying, though. I mean, my point is to get results and get, I start with maps. There's no question. But always, definitely, you want to validate, solidify that entity. You want to try to build brand authority for that particular entity, because it's not that you can't rank in the organic section. It's just going to take you longer and more effort. And so my point is, start with maps. Once you start getting, leads coming in for your lead gen business or for your client, then you can focus on all the other stuff that you're going to need to do to get ranked and to try to attempt to rank in the organic section as well, which all the stuff that Marco just mentioned is absolutely correct. So do both, but start, in my opinion, with the map stuff. And that's what, that's the way I've run my business for years. Okay, so next one he says is, would it make a positive difference if you listed 1 or 2 random local business NAPs from that niche on the authority site to give Google a local business name, address, and phone number? Thanks again. Would it make a positive difference if you listed 1 or 2 random local business NAPs from that niche on the authority site? I'm not sure I understand that one. If you're trying to rank organically, would it make maybe the way I'm interpreting this is that you're saying if you're trying to rank organically by including NAPs from other businesses, perhaps it would make it more like an authority site. I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, it depends on what you're doing, but unless you're building a directory site, I wouldn't do that. Right. I mean, I wouldn't want to push authority over to anybody else's site, especially competitors. So I'm not sure I understand that part of the question. I'm going to move